Patrick Crusius was born in 1998 in Texas. As a child, he was quiet and kept to himself. He struggled socially and had difficulty making friends. Teachers and classmates described him as withdrawn. He spent much of his time alone, often online. His parents later divorced, which added instability to his home life. From an early age, he showed signs of anxiety and isolation. As Crusius grew older, his isolation increased. He dropped out of college and had trouble holding a job. He spent long hours on the internet where he consumed extremist content. Over time, his views became more extreme and focused on fear and resentment. He developed strong beliefs about immigration and believed false ideas about people replacing others in society. Crusius began to blame certain groups for his personal failures and fears about the future. He absorbed online propaganda that framed violence as a solution. These ideas were reinforced through online forums and writings that promoted hate. Before the attack, Crusius legally purchased a firearm. He wrote a manifesto filled with racist beliefs and posted it online shortly before carrying out the shooting. The document showed clear planning and intent. On August 3, 2019, Patrick Crusius drove from Allen, Texas to El Paso. He entered a Walmart near the U.S.-Mexico border, a location chosen because it was frequented by Hispanic families. Crusius opened fire, killing 23 people and injuring many others. The victims included parents, grandparents, and children. After the attack, Crusius fled the scene, but was soon stopped by police. He surrendered without resistance and later confessed to the shooting. Investigators confirmed that the attack was motivated by racial hatred. George Hennard was born in 1956 in California. His childhood was also marked by instability. His parents divorced when he was young, and he struggled to form close relationships. People who knew him later described him as socially awkward and easily angered. As a child and teenager, he had trouble fitting in and often felt rejected by others, especially women. As an adult, Hennard lived a very isolated life. He had difficulty holding steady jobs and moved frequently. He blamed others for his failures and believed society had treated him unfairly. Over time, his anger focused strongly on women, whom he believed had wronged him. In the months before the attack, Hennard legally purchased firearms. He made no serious effort to hide his hatred and frustration, but there was no system in place to intervene. His grievances continued to build, feeding a sense of entitlement and rage. On October 16, 1991, George Hennard drove his truck through the front window of a Lubby's cafeteria in Killeen, Texas. Inside, families and seniors were eating lunch. Hennard opened fire, killing 23 people and injuring many others. Witnesses later reported that he shouted hateful statements during the attack. Police responded quickly and exchanged gunfire with Hennard. When he was cornered, he took his own life. At the time, the Lubby's cafeteria shooting was the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history. Nadal Malik Hassan was born on September 8, 1970, in Arlington, Virginia, to Palestinian immigrant parents. He grew up in a conservative Muslim household and was described as quiet, intelligent, and reserved. Hassan struggled socially from an early age and was often seen as introverted. After the deaths of both his parents, he became increasingly isolated. Academically, Hassan excelled, earning degrees from Virginia Tech and later the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences. Hassan joined the U.S. Army as a psychiatrist, where his role involved counseling soldiers returning from combat zones. Over time, colleagues observed troubling changes. Hassan expressed increasingly extreme views about war, violence, and religion. He struggled professionally, receiving poor performance evaluations and warnings from supervisors. Investigations later revealed that Hassan had been communicating via email with Anwar al-Awlaki, a radical cleric linked to extremist ideology. While these communications were flagged by intelligence agencies, they were not acted upon decisively at the time. On November 5, 2009, Hassan entered the Soldier Readiness Processing Center at Fort Hood, armed with 2 handguns. Without warning, he opened fire on soldiers preparing for deployment. The attack lasted several minutes before Hassan was shot and apprehended by military police. 13 people were killed and more than 30 others were wounded. Hassan survived and was later court-martialed, convicted on 13 counts of premeditated murder and sentenced to death. Connor Stephen Betts was born on January 16, 1995 in Dayton, Ohio. He grew up in a stable, middle-class household and showed strong academic ability from a young age. However, Betts exhibited behavioral problems early in his life. During his school years, he was repeatedly disciplined for violent threats and disturbing behavior, including creating hit lists of classmates. Despite these warning signs, Betts remained in school and later attended Sinclair Community College and Wright State University. As Betts entered adulthood, his behavior became increasingly erratic. He struggled to maintain steady employment and appeared to drift socially. Former classmates and acquaintances described him as angry, nihilistic, and obsessed with violence. Betts had a documented history of mental health concerns and had expressed fascination with mass shootings prior to the attack. Unlike many perpetrators, Betts did not leave behind a clear manifesto explaining his motives. Investigators later found that he had access to firearms legally and had modified his weapon to maximize lethality. His social media presence revealed conflicting ideologies and aggressive rhetoric, making it difficult to place him within a single extremist framework. Shortly after 1 a.m. on August 4, 2019, Connor Betts began shooting in Dayton's Oregon district, targeting people outside bars and restaurants. The attack was over within 32 seconds. Police officers in the area responded immediately, killing Betts before he could continue further. 9 people were killed, including Betts' own sister, and at least 17 others were wounded. Dylan Storm Roof was born on April 3, 1994, in Columbia, South Carolina. He grew up in a broken household marked by instability, financial stress, and frequent moves. Roof struggled academically and dropped out of high school. Friends and family later described him as withdrawn, socially isolated, and prone to substance use. From a young age, Roof appeared disconnected from peers and lacked a strong support system. His home life was characterized by limited supervision and few stabilizing influences, which contributed to his sense of alienation as he entered adolescence. As Roof moved into early adulthood, his isolation deepened. He spent long periods alone, consuming online content that reinforced racist beliefs and conspiracy theories. Over time, these ideas hardened into a rigid worldview centered on white supremacist ideology. Roof began to see violence as a way to provoke a racial conflict and draw attention to his beliefs. He created a manifesto outlining his motivations and posted photographs displaying extremist symbols. Despite prior contact with law enforcement, including an arrest that should have prevented him from purchasing a firearm, a background check failure allowed Roof to legally obtain a handgun. On the evening of June 17, 2015, Roof entered Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church during a Bible study session. He was welcomed by congregants and sat with them for approximately 45 minutes. Without warning, Roof stood up and opened fire, killing 9 people. Survivors later reported that he deliberately spared one individual to tell the story, reinforcing his desire for attention and impact. Roof fled the scene but was arrested the following day. He was later convicted on federal hate crime charges and sentenced to death. Robert Gregory Bowers was born on September 12, 1972 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He grew up in a working-class environment and was described as quiet, socially withdrawn, and largely isolated throughout his life. Bowers lived alone for extended periods and had few close relationships. There is limited public information about his childhood, but acquaintances later described him as someone who struggled to form stable social connections. As an adult, he worked sporadically as a truck driver and remained detached from mainstream social life, spending much of his time online. Over time, Bowers became deeply immersed in extremist ideology. He fixated on conspiracy theories centered on anti-Semitism, immigration, and perceived threats to his identity. His radicalization largely took place online, particularly on fringe social media platforms where hateful beliefs were reinforced rather than challenged. Bowers frequently posted violent anti-Semitic messages expressing hostility toward Jewish organizations and immigrants. These posts revealed a rigid worldview built on grievance and dehumanization. Despite the visibility of his online rhetoric, Bowers was not under active law enforcement surveillance prior to the attack. He legally acquired firearms and practiced with them regularly. Investigators later concluded that his actions were driven by ideological hatred rather than personal relationships or immediate grievances. On the morning of October 27, 2018, Bowers entered the Tree of Life synagogue armed with multiple firearms as congregants gathered for Shabbat services. He opened fire inside the building, killing 11 people and wounding several others, including police officers who responded to the scene. After a prolonged standoff, Bowers was shot, apprehended, and taken into custody. He later stated that his actions were motivated by anti-Semitic beliefs. Bowers was charged with multiple federal hate crime offenses and, in 2023, was sentenced to death.